has been on the forefront of really an incredible progressive movement fighting for Chinese Americans, fighting for Asian Americans, fighting for our civil rights.
The stereotype of Chinese is hardworking, long-suffering, and can take care of our own problems. And we wanted to shake up City Hall, talk about our problems, and ask for our fair share of funding.
Because the challenges of discrimination, lack of opportunities, confront, members of the community on a daily basis, and it's really to CAA's credit that it's still taking a leadership role on many of these issues that face the community.
CAA was my first job. People were telling me, why are you going into that organization? It's a rebel-rousing organization, it's left-wing. I said, I love it, get me there. I couldn't get there soon enough. And I never regretted a moment since that time.
Chinese for Affirmative Action was started by young activists in the late 1960s who were grounded in the civil rights and the Third World movements. Their work was a part of a broader generational and political upheaval that was challenging the status quo.
And when I first started with CAA, there were just Lillian Wong, myself, Lillian Sing, Alice Leon Barkley, Buddy Choi, and Germaine Wong. There were just 5 of us. And we first went all over the place talking about affirmative action for the Chinese American community. It was a really novel concept, the first in this country, and it was well received because it was a first, but the impact of it, nobody realized.
CAA brought class action lawsuits and impact litigation to advance change. We won decisions for bilingual education, for immigrant protections, and job opportunities for people of color. We fought for laws promoting language diversity and bilingual access.
One of the things that they were working on at the time was a lawsuit called Lau v. Nichols. And I was saying, wow, this is really far-fetched, suing the Unified School District. And then at the first layers, I think they lost. And then Lynch said, well, we're gonna take it all the way to the US Supreme Court. I said, US Supreme Court, it was like, back then was like heaven, How are you gonna climb the stairs to heaven and open the pearly gate? And when I heard that they won, I just could not believe it. But that affirmed for me that if there is strength in the grassroots and there's determination and conviction, you can succeed.
Somebody said, well, what was the legacy? What is it that you think you left behind during your tenure at CAA? And I have to say it was working with public advocates on suing the San Francisco Police Department and the San Francisco Fire Department for having the height restriction where they said you had to be at least 5'7" and carry 100 pounds dead weight in order to be a fireman or a policeman. And we sued them, and we won. And so now we have all these 5'2" Irish cops walking the beat.
But during the 70s and 80s, when we waged all those battles for bilingual access, it was not easy because the community and the organization were vilified for being un-American, that we were not interested in having community members acquire English and to become Americans of this country. And we know that over time, the organization was correct in taking very strong stance for bilingual access.
At the same time, we continue to work and organize in the community. Staying community-based meant campaigns that had real relevance to people, like fighting for fairness in educational and employment opportunity, or for diversity in mainstream and alternative media.
I came to San Francisco about in the early 1990s. When I came here, I was a volunteer at CAA. And then later on, I became a client when I started looking for jobs. And I actually, CAA helped me got 3 different jobs.
I think one thing that has been really inspirational is watching the parent leaders actually grow into their role as a leader in their community. And so now you actually see them at hearings, you see them actually become a voice for their child and advocate to ensure that their child has quality education. And so they're not only advocating for their child as an individual, but then you also see them at hearings advocating for better systemic change.
The commitment to community empowerment, the commitment to institutional change, and the commitment to defending civil rights. These things help set CAA apart. And we became a powerful local organization with state and national influence. But we confronted new challenges in the 1990s.
The biggest challenge for us in the late 1990s and the early 2000s was we were working in a terrible political climate. It was a time when mainstream society wanted to run away from the civil rights era. And words like affirmative action, the very concept, have become politically toxic. And what we tried to do at that time was to highlight those issues that brought us together, issues that help integrate immigrant into mainstream society, and also to develop a political voice for Asian Americans and Chinese Americans.
As the times changed, so did CAA. CAA helped to build the progressive Asian Pacific Islander community and worked to advance multiracial democracy. We forged powerful alliances. We incubated and supported important organizations. We trained new generations of leaders, and we pushed forward on many fronts. Even when the going got tough, we stayed true to our values. We were unafraid to take difficult stands on affirmative action, busing, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender rights, workers' rights, and reproductive rights. All of this has been possible because of our committed and visionary staff, board, members, allies, and supporters.
I think CAA has really been lucky that in the 40 years, I think we've always had really good, dedicated staff who are very bright, who are strategic thinkers, who can see ahead and don't just look at the immediate local picture, but see the implications for a much larger group of people and also for the future.
You know, I think CAA is a unique organization in that I think it's hard to have a place that's this intergenerational. And I think it speaks to the fact that you, as an organization, you really have some core values in place that are about justice, about equality, and really importantly about building community.
After 40 years, we are seeing another generational and political upheaval. Yet CAA is poised to lead the community in the decades to come. Our ethos has served us well, embracing risk, challenging the status quo, fighting for systemic change, making an impact.
And one of the things that I'm especially appreciative of in terms of what's happened at CAA over 40 years of progressive change is that it has always taken stands based on principles, based on values, and those principles and values have been consistent over time.
Fairness, compassion, justice, equality. Chinese for affirmative action. 40 years of progressive change.
New people coming through, you better move when we come. Watch, 'cause here we come. New